All right, so the next step, we are going to create our snowman. Now, like I just said, acetate does not like to be die cut. And it does tend to warp, but what we're going to do, and this will just help it a little bit, is we will die cut the acetate as well as a piece of cardstock. And I'm twisting it only because I want to be able to flip this snowman and fit him here, not for any other reason than that. So the snowman is going to warp still by doing this, but if I didn't use that cardstock on it, it just doesn't really cut through. Like I said, it doesn't like acetate. So you can see how it warps like that. And there's not really a way to fix it. The only other thing that you could do would be to have your die cut outline it and then hand cut this, and that absolutely is a option. I just like some of the embossed details that come out of that when it is cut. So I'm just matching my die back up with the cardstock. So with the cardstock, it didn't cut all the way through. So I want to get that one cut, and then I'm going to flip it over and do a second one. So that one, it actually shifted while I cut it, but I'm just going to use that as my back, and you're never going to see that. What I really should have done was taped it in place so that it didn't shift on me. And really, if it was an issue, I could recut it, but it's not going to be an issue. There we go. Now, in order to create the opening parts for our shaker bit, obviously, if I created a shaker out of this snowman, there's nothing to see through, so you wouldn't see it. And if I created a shaker just out of this, when I go to put my tape around the edges, you're going to see it and it's not going to look very pretty. So what we're going to do is we're going to take just some circle dies, and you could do this with other die cuts as well, depending on the shape. Some will work better than others. But say you had a die of a gift, you could try using some square dies, or you could even use an X-Acto knife and a ruler to cut about a 1/4 inch-ish around the edge in order to create an opening there. So now I'm also going to do one on the head to open that up. So take a look at your dies and see which ones you can turn into shaker cards. You can actually buy dies that are specifically for that and do that for you, but sometimes it's fun to do it on die cuts that aren't, where that isn't expected. So there we go, we have our shaker opening out of here. First thing I'm going to do is glue my acetate to that. And I'm going to do it by getting a very thin double-sided tape. By choosing a thin one here, I'm going to be able to turn it and manipulate it to the curves around the snowman. Now, it's not going to be completely flat by doing this, but that's okay. It's going to be enough that it glues that acetate. So you can see there are some wrinkles in there, but it's going to be enough that it can glue that acetate to this piece of cardstock here. If you had time to wait, you could take some Distress Collage Medium and use that, and then weigh it down with an acrylic block while it dries. But once again, this is just a bit of a quicker way to do it. You just want to take your time and go slowly around all of those edges. There we go. Make sure it's down all the way around all of the edges, and now take the backing off. And the outlines will match perfectly. There we go. This one just went in a little bit, so if you happen to have that and you have a tiny little bit of acetate showing, just use a pair of scissors and trim that off, and no one will ever know. There we go. And now I'm going to glue the front to the back. Where did there's my foam strips right here. So because of the warping that happens with that acetate, I'm actually going to do 2 layers of my foam tape around the edges, just to give it some extra dimension and give those shaker bits a little bit more room to move. And just like the tape, I'm turning it and pressing it down around the edges. The foam tape turns a little bit easier than the flat, thin tape. There we go. And once we get to meet the first edge, we're going to trim it. And just like I've said through this, when you do your second layer, make sure that you're putting your joins in different areas. That's just going to hold any of the joins closed, and it's also going to give you, or by holding the joints closed, it's going to make sure that any of those little tiny shaker bits don't fall out. There we are, and 1 more, actually maybe 2 more, because the first one was a tiny little piece. Yeah, just a tiny little piece here. There we go. Extra can go back on there because it can get used for the next card. Now before I take my tape backing off of there, I'm just going to put the shaker bits in. Once again, it's just an assortment of a bunch of different ones. I've got some silver stars here. These are actually little iridescent hearts, but I thought it was really cute in here. And then the other one was just some silver balls. Actually, I'm going to put some mica flakes in here too. Just some. So these mica flakes, they're natural ones. So there are some that have some brown tones to them. A lot of them are more clear. But if those brown tones bother you, you can just pick them out. I had a couple in my snowflake card there, you probably saw. And we're wondering what those brown bits are. They're just the mica flakes. There we go. A little bit came on my finger. All right, now we're going to turn our die cut over and match it to glue it. Now remember how this die shifted, so it's not going to be exactly, but I just want it to match it enough so that it is hidden. There we go. So I'm going to glue this guy here, and then I'm going to put an acrylic block on it and let it dry. And then I will be back to add the snowman details.